Thanks for being here today. Welcome. It's Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. How did it get to be 2021, huh? This is a CG Talk, 100 Years of Leadership and Learning, Diversity and Inclusion at Hallmark, with Sabrina Wheel, who is Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer there, whom I will introduce in just a moment. But first, let me say I'm Phil Terry, founder of Collaborative Gain. We are a 2 decades old small community of senior business leaders. We place a premium on vulnerability and asking for help. In fact, this is a community that normalizes and celebrates asking for help, as one of our members said to me yesterday. Today, we are all going to be asking Sabrina for help in thinking about diversity and inclusion, and what's gone well and what some of the mistakes and recoveries from those mistakes that they've gone through at Hallmark. I've had a chance to get to know Sabrina over the last several years, and I think you are really in for a treat. She has an official bio, which I'll share with you, and then a more personal one, which I think is also important to hear before we get started. So the official one, Sabrina has worked at Hallmark for the last 9 years. Before being promoted to her current role, which again is EVP and Chief Administrative Officer. She got that promotion in 2019. Before that, she served as Hallmark's Chief Customer Officer. Among other things, she was accountable for the distribution of Hallmark's products to consumers through 50,000 rooftops and via the interwebs. Prior to joining Hallmark, she worked as Chief Tax Network Officer for H&R Block. She's got a bunch of awards. She's been featured in Forbes' Today's True Leadership series, sharing her diversity and inclusion perspectives and experiences, some of which we'll hear about today. She's been recognized as one of Progressive Grocer's top senior level executive women and one of Shopper Marketing Magazine's Who's Who in Leadership. And in 2016, she was named a Kansas City Business Journal Women Who Mean Business honoree. And also the magazine Biz Women named her top 100 women to watch in the country. So, you know, she's done a lot and is a smart and progressive leader. But I also want you to know a little bit about Sabrina personally, kind of the unofficial bio. Sabrina was born to a Japanese mother and an American father. Her mother actually witnessed the atomic bomb dropping in Nagasaki when she was 9 years old, when her mother was 9 years old, and in fact lost all of her hair and teeth. And you can imagine that the last person her mother's family wanted her to marry was an American GI, but that's what happened. They met in Nagasaki, of course, after the war, and then moved to the United States. Sabrina was born here in the US, but Sabrina, you told me the story about how your mom dropped you off at a friend's house when you were 3, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And never came back. She was supposedly going on an errand and she flew home to Japan. Sabrina ended up living with her father through 5 divorces. And then Sabrina, you left home at 14, right? You became independent at 14 years of age, you know, working, paying rent and finishing school. And in your words, you're a scrappy and unpolished, small-statured Asian woman who has nonetheless, you know, made it to where you've gone and learned something about both, you know, through your own experiences. And of course, as you've said, you'd never compare what you've gone through with what your African-American colleagues and others experience, but your own experiences have really helped you develop a deep passion around diversity and inclusion. And so with that, you know, we're here, we'd love to hear more about this remarkable 100-year history at Hallmark, what you guys have learned, also some of the things where you've stumbled, and how you're thinking about this, of course, today. So I really appreciate you coming and spending some time with us. And for those of you who are in the audience, Sabrina's going to talk. You can post questions in the chat is where I'll be mostly focused. And we'll do a Q&A at the end. And if it seems most relevant, I might even jump in and ask you to address it as we're going, Sabrina, if that's okay with you.
I think that's perfect. Thanks so much, Phil.
It's
And
so
thanks so
wonderful.
much for the very, very personal and warm introduction. And I'm grateful to all of you guys for carving out an hour of your time to hear the story that I'm about to tell. I know that an hour of your time is very, very important. So the fact that you chose to share it with us today, I'm really, really grateful for that. And so I hope to share with you a very riveting story about the past year at Hallmark, but also I'm hoping to give you just a little bit of background to Hallmark, kind of the overarching story around who we are as it relates to DE&I. And then I will tell you a story of the last year. We had multiple challenges that I know that many of you faced as well. And I thought by sharing with you our particular journey and how it touched us in the DE&I space would be really helpful. And then we could all have a conversation at the end, because maybe there are things as well I can learn from all of you that have joined today. So with that, Jessica, I'm going to ask if you can put up the slides. And if they're up, I can't see. There they are. Perfect. Hoping everybody can see those. We can go ahead and go to the next slide, Jessica. Okay, so that's the real story. So Phil did a fabulous job of telling my intro story about why diversity and inclusion is so important to me. So I will not repeat that, but there's proof that there is that little Japanese baby with my dad and my mom. So that's just kind of how I introduce and tell my story. Jessica, if you want to continue to go forward. So now let me tell you a little bit about Hallmark and kind of where our journey has been. We have 3 companies. I think many of you probably know us for these 3, but some might not. Our core business started over 100 years ago as a greeting card company, moved into a gift wrap company, ornaments, other things, and we're really known for our gold crown stores around the country. But another piece, in the 1980s, we acquired Crayola. So we own Benny and Smith, but we've kept the Crayola name. So many times people don't associate Crayola with Hallmark, but that is one of our wholly owned subsidiaries. And then we have Crown Media. And I will hope that you guys will admit to me that you binge watch our Christmas movies, because I love it when people tell us that you do. But we also know that, especially this last year, people have turned to our Hallmark channel for a bit of respite, because you kind of know how it's going to end, and it will always end very happy. But we had some challenges on that channel, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the challenges that we faced the last year and the journey we were on with Crown Media. They were privately held, publicly traded, privately held, and then we actually bought wholly owned now the Crown Media business just within the last year or so. Or I guess 2 years ago. So let me show you a little bit about our rich history of DE&I, because I know that Phil has found this fascinating. He just didn't know.
I had no idea. I love this history. Yeah.
So back in 1912, we actually hired our very first woman writer. She wrote The Ships That Pass in the Night, Lillian. And this is when women never left the house, right? And they were not recognized for being writers. And this was a really big deal. And J.C. Hall saw the power of women connecting in this written space. And he did it. You know, he's always been kind of just the first pioneer to do those things. Then in the 1940s, we hired our first elected woman to our board of directors, which was fantastic. And in the 1960s, we
1940s. Let me just pause there, because there's still so many American companies that don't have a woman on their board today. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, keep going, Sabrina. Thank
1960s, we actually then introduced our same-sex benefits, and it was before it was even talked about, before it was even a thing that companies recognized under Don Hall the son then. So Don Hall Sr., you see kind of in the center, he just carried the torch for his father. So it's just been embedded in our company's culture.
Can you just say that one more time? It gives me goosebumps. In the 1960s.
1960s.
Same-sex benefits. What?
Correct. Right. And then as you continue on, you see that then under Don Hall's leadership, we launched Mahogany, which is a brand that is amazing and really resonates with our African American community, but quite frankly, across the board. We also became, a national minority supplier development council where we have really strict guidelines around our supplier development. And I'm sure many of you guys do too. But we also joined the LGBT at the time, Mid-America Chamber of Commerce, and nationally, right? And the participation by the Hall family is personal. They attend the events, they are there, they're very active. It's amazing. Then
That makes it such a difference.
it does.
I tell CEOs this all the time. You have to personally invest your time, or this isn't gonna fly. Yeah.
No, and you will see, now we're of course involved with, NAACP and Urban League and all of that, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But then under now the third generation of sons, which is Don and Dave Hall, we also then launched a much broader portfolio of LGBTQ product, 8 Bamboo for our Asian community, Golden Thread, Tree of Life, and Vita. So we've had in our portfolio quite a wide range of products that represent D&I, which has been fantastic. All right, so that's our history. Continuing on. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift, and I'm going to take you guys through our last year. So this would be actually December of 2019, and I'm going to take you through a really crazy year. And I think that hopefully some of these things will resonate maybe with some of you with things that you had, but I hope you never had some of these things on the scale we did. But I will never forget this. We had adopted our nephew at 8 years old, and he actually finally graduated college at 30 on December 15th. And it was a very proud day for me. But on December 15th, the day of his graduation, I was busy fighting off every media outlet that there was, because our president of our media business, got a hold of us on Thursday, and on a Thursday, some decisions had been made at Crown Media to pull a Zola ad, and this particular Zola ad had 2 brides kissing, and when we pulled that ad, the New York Times got a hold of that and wanted to know why. Well, our president went ahead and granted an interview, but the brand was not involved with the interview. So the interview was going forward, and we, our CEO, and of course the Hallmark brand, did not agree with this decision. And our brand would have said, we're a very open, where love is love for us. At our core, we are a connecting company. We are not here to judge. We are love is love. We are here to connect. And so this went counterintuitive to our brand beliefs and values that if you see, we built over 100 years. And it shows you that in literally 20 minutes, it can get destroyed. Like this happened in a nanosecond. And within 24 hours, we were—
And Sabrina, just for people who don't remember, just go over the basics. The ad was run, and then there was a backlash from some groups that were anti-LGBTQ.
Yeah.
And then the president of the Crown Media brand pulled the ad.
Yeah. So our Crown Media channel has always really never towed any line that might be politically charged, right? They try to stay kind of, neutral. But in this case, Zola had run an ad, and somebody made the decision to go ahead and pull it. And that caused, when the ad aired, to your point, Phil, we had a lot of groups come out and call our CEO. So then they made the decision to pull it. And then we had a whole nother set of groups calling on the other side, right? So there was, there was just a lot going on kind of on both sides of this. And what was critical for us is that the decision got made in isolation by one of our businesses, but it just didn't meet our Hallmark beliefs and values as a brand. And any of you guys that run or work for umbrella brands, you know that everything attached to your brand affects your overall umbrella brand, and this did. And within 24 hours, we were being tweeted out by Ellen. There was a Saturday night spoof on us that evening. So within 24 hours, it just really started to unfold. Well, our CEO of our enterprise wanted that decision reversed. And he reversed the decision on Saturday, which then hit the press on Sunday. And so then we had a whole kind of turn of events, but then a whole nother series of, media and all of that. So that all happened in December. And I will tell you, it emotionally affected our community because our employees work for us because of our beliefs and values. We have a creative community. We have uh, business resource groups or employee resource groups that are made up of hundreds of people in the LGBTQ community. And it really was very hurtful to the allies, to the employees. So we ended up having to have multiple internal sessions. We had to have conversations and really help our employees through this. So again, 100 years that we had built up, and this was a really interesting moment. Okay, so fast forward. So we were in the paper about that. And then in January, we were doing some consolidation. Now, we have 25,000 employees across the globe, but these 400 jobs made the press. And so we, of course, started to deal with some morale issues around this. Then we move into February. Actually kind of end of January, then we part ways with our CEO of the Hallmark channel. Well, when we did that, it made headlines, of course, again, because we were only 6 weeks away from the Zola crisis.
This was the person who had pulled the ad.
It's the CEO at the time, yeah. So, and ultimately the decisions rolled up. So I don't know if he specifically made the call, but anyway, so then we move on. And again, I tell you guys these things because Phil has assured me that these conversations are highly confidential. These are not conversations that'll leave this group of 40 people. And so I'm sharing with you very kind of in an open and a raw way. But as you guys would all know, as you guys would be as well, you're very careful with what you say externally. So we are very buttoned up about what we say externally, but I'm giving you kind of a really raw view of what we went through. So then in March, no one on this call doesn't know or feel the emotion of about March 13th to March 18th when everything began to shut down. And for us, these things were, it was a crazy time for us, but there were a lot of decisions we had to make. So again, we hit the press. We were having to set up coronavirus task forces, all the things that I'm sure all of you guys had to do, furloughs, cuts in executive pay, all those kinds of things we went through in the March timeframe. So then as we continue on, we think, okay, we need to take a pause. And this is our time to innovate and put some more care back into the world. So we gave away 1 million card packs which went in about 5 minutes. Our CEO went on Fox News and we, again, gave away another, I think, 1 million or 2 million additional card packs for people to send notes to each other because everyone was quarantined at home. Many people were with their children, they couldn't leave, and they felt disconnected. And we started to hear about people being depressed and sad and not being able to connect with loved ones. So we knew we had a place in the world for that. So then we move into the social injustices that began to occur in May. And so as Black Lives Matter, remember, we just came off of Zola crisis, and now we're hitting Black Lives Matter crisis. And so as we go into this, there were a lot of things that we needed to do. So our CEO sent a note to everyone in our organization about the recent tragedies, and really wanted to reach out and make a connection. He then also went on video. He then started to have some CEO roundtables with our employees. Continue on, Jessica. And what he decided he wanted to do is at an enterprise level, he wanted to make it clear what our 5 corporate priorities were going to be around DE&I. And so he put out that for all of our businesses, Crayola, Crown Media, and our core business, and all of our enabling organizations, we needed to put together our objectives against these 5 things. So elevated intentional learning, what we really did here is we started to create a curated learning modules for everyone that included anything from TED Talks to books to movies to roundtable discussions. And we were very purposeful about that curation. Then we had to put together, be very intentional about how we thought about recruitment slates, how we went back and looked at the way in which we had the qualifications for employees. And so, for example, we reduced qualification requirements at our plants, and we opened up some of the requirement levels so that we could hire a broader group of employees. So we really went and looked by job, we re-architected all of these things, and really thought about our recruiting very, very differently, our retention very differently, and our development very differently. Now, where we had some good and we had some struggles was in the product, the content, and the experiences. So I showed you early on that in our core business, we have Mahogany, we have LGBTQ product, we have Vita, all of those things. But on our channel, we were still primarily a white channel with very little diversity. And we were told this for years by our viewers. Why don't I see anybody that looks like me, right? Why don't I see relationships that are like me? And so we had an opportunity to hire a new CEO of our channel, and we brought in a woman by the name of Wanya Lucas, who joined us about 5 months ago, African-American woman who came out of the media industry. Amazing. And I will tell you that we interviewed the top 16 people that we interviewed in the recruitment process. 70% of that slate was diverse. So again, it's about getting a diverse slate so you have a great choice. And we hired the best candidate. We did not hire a candidate that was diverse. We just hired the best candidate. But we had a very diverse slate going into that interview process. And she's amazing. And she brings such a different element of how she thinks about viewership. And I'm going to show you in a minute the advances that we made in this area. Okay, continuing on the Crayola side too, I'll show you the Crayola piece in a minute. All right, advocacy and lobbying, you know, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how this came to play when the insurgents happened at the Capitol, but we do have a government affairs team. We do have a lot of advocacy and lobbying, like I said, with the NAACP, Urban League, partnerships with GLAAD, PFLAG. They have been invited in to help us look at content. They've been invited in to help us look at scripts for movies, etc. And then accountability just wraps all around that. All right, moving on. So then we hired this vice president of DE&I. Her name is Kristen Harris. She was an engineer in our supply chain, fantastic woman. And as she's come on board, she's helped bring those 5 strategies to life. Celebrations around Juneteenth. We did an LGBTQ. It was an intersectionality of being of a different race and being LGBTQ. It's called an intersectionality panel. And then she's also helped us with some of our social media, etc. So continuing, Jessica. Then we had the political unrest in October, November, a lot of tensions rising. And so what we decided to do from this is we decided to do no meeting Tuesdays. We did no meeting on that Tuesday so that we could do more voting. This, out of the entire year, got us the most positive feedback from employees. I cannot even tell you. And so what we did is everybody from our company right now, from our corporate headquarters, is working from home. And so we do have movies being made on set, and we do have our plants operational, but the corporate headquarters are still working remotely. And so everybody's getting Zoom fatigue. And so we learned that everybody loved having this day blocked to be able to go vote and to just catch up. So what we did is now we have no meeting Tuesdays once a month. So once a month, we are not allowed to have meetings on a Tuesday. And it is like, I can't tell you, it's like done things for our culture and our employees, and they're so thrilled. So
I love that, Sabrina. You know, we've talked about that a lot in the community because, you know, the folks at Base Camp have a weekly no meeting day and have been advocating that for a long time. I'm really glad you did that, and I'm glad you're doing it
Yeah.
monthly. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the whole corporation and everybody's, following. And I don't know, we might do more, Phil, because the once a month everybody's so grateful for. But, you are going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting. You're barely eating. I mean, it's this respite is great for everybody. Okay, Jessica, next slide. All right. So remember, I talked to you guys about a year ago. We had the Zola crisis, and we also had some challenges. Well, this year, as we launched our Christmas portfolio in December, we actually had 12 diversity leads of our shows, and we started to get very positive press. It was a very different December than last December, and we had the Christmas House, which actually had the first um, gay couple lead for our movies, and we just got a lot of positive press for this as well. So again, what a difference a year makes, and a lot of learning that we had over the course of the year. These are the places that we use to be able to help us. And what I will tell you is I'm going to show you guys in a minute, because I always have to end with a couple of Hallmark commercials. It wouldn't be a Hallmark moment without it. But one of the commercials that we did, we actually brought in PFLAG, and they actually helped us on set with things that were right, that felt more right in the script around this commercial that we shot. And so now we're up for some awards with GLAAD and PFLAG because of our partnership. And we're doing that on movie sets and other things. And so we're learning that these advocacy groups are really great at kind of being our friends and giving us insights and being great partners. So I don't know how you guys might leverage them, but that's how we are. We had our very first enterprise-wide diversity and inclusion summit with all 7 of our corporate executive leaders. So the presidents of each of the businesses. And this was worldwide. We did it worldwide. So we had about 3,000 people Zoom in for this. It was the #1 thing this year that we did. People are raving about it. And what they're raving about is that the executives all are on the same page, and they're all rowing the boat the same way. So regardless if it's DE&I or anything else, they were just pleased to see that we were all behind something and that there was a lot of energy. But the DE&I specifically resonated so well. We had Kristen facilitate, and we had fabulous questions. But I will tell you, the thing that was on people's mind is equity. And I don't know, how all of you guys are dealing with that, but we have a lot of questions around equity of pay, equity of opportunity, and we really had to address that head on. We did it. We really talked about how we measure against market. We invited people to talk to us if they felt like things were not equitable, but there was a lot of questions around that. There was also a lot of questions around retention and recruitment and our numbers. And I know many companies are comfortable and other companies are not comfortable with sharing metrics and numbers, but we are getting there. We're getting to where we're sharing some of our metrics and our numbers. And if you guys have any questions.
Publicly or just internally?
Well, right now we're doing it internally from our goals and objectives, Phil, but as we get ready to get Mike Perry, our CEO, ready to go out to talk to the press, we are preparing what he can say in terms of, our percentages of our populations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great. Okay.
And it's hard for us, and I don't know about all of you guys that are calling in right now, but we can track people of color pretty easily. The parts that we have a little bit harder time tracking are people with special abilities or the LGBTQ community, because they have to self-identify. And our community, our culture is such a culture built on trust that we do have a lot of people that self-identify. But I know that my friends at other companies have a very difficult time because people don't trust to be able to self-identify that. Okay, so then we hit January, so just recently, and as you guys are well aware, with the insurgents on the Capitol, Hallmark Cards is located in Kansas City, Missouri. So Josh Hawley is our senator from here in Missouri, who was one of the gentlemen with Ted Cruz. I'm sure you guys all know he's the one with the fist. And about 3 years ago, we gave Josh Hawley $1,000 because he was helping us with USPS reform. United States Postal Service is very important to us, as you guys know, because of our greeting card business. And so our Hallmark did donate to his campaign, and he proudly put that on his website. So as the insurgence was occurring, we were getting a lot of backlash and questions around our donations to Marshall and Holly. But at the same time, prior to that, as the insurgence was happening, I will tell you that the Hallmark team was meeting. Our CEO, I was talking to him at 8 o'clock that night, and the decision was already made to pull the funding and to stop funding Holly and Marshall. That was already decided. So we didn't think much about it until it just continued and continued for maybe 5 more days, 6 more days. You started having the Lincoln Project come in. You started to have people, corporations, and Reuters asked us, what we had done. So we provided Reuters a press release, a short press release. It somehow caught fire, mostly because we're Hallmark and because we clawed the money back. But we were in 1,300 publications, front page around the globe. We were on every outlet, CNN, Fox, you name it. The interesting part here, though, is that you have people on both sides of the equation, and some of you sitting on the call might be on both sides of the equation. And we're okay with that. I mean, it was our decision to pull that because of the insurgents, not because, we donate to Republicans and Democrats. It's not that.
And to the point that after the insurgency, he still pursued questioning the Electoral College vote.
That's what it was. It was when they came back into session, that when he continued on to Pennsylvania, that's when the decision got made that it was for other reasons. So we did that. And I will just tell you that, the hardest part about some of this right now is then, is security issues. We've had threats all over, threats to the business, threats to our people. And so as the CAO of the organization, so the Chief Administrative Officer, I have PR, I have HR, I have government affairs, I have all of DE&I, I have social responsibility. So I have multiple things in my portfolio. So it crosses across my entire organization. I also have corporate communications. In fact, the woman running she's running my screen right now is Jessica Noble. She's our vice president. She's the top head of our employee communications. She's been very, very busy. And I'm so grateful that she's taking an hour to help me run this. She helped me put this whole presentation together because she's been in the trenches with me for a year now. And we've had to make sure we keep employees safe. We're communicating, we keep our executives safe. And we've had to address kind of all these multiple issues. So I'm tired. I am like so ready to go be on a beach somewhere because I keep thinking, oh my gosh, what's around the corner? Because we've had a heck of a year, and not that many of you haven't. I know that many of these things I'm talking about, I'm sure a lot of you guys have faced as well, but we really feel like we've been in the trenches. Now, I kind of just leave this with you guys to just say, never waste a good disruption. I'm sure you guys haven't, and I'm excited to even learn from you guys what you may have done from an innovation standpoint. But we had a lot of innovation come out. We were able to change a lot of our processes. We were able to get innovative product. So you saw the movies. Well, we also launched Colors of the World for Crayola, and it was a #1 selling crayon box at Walmart. It had every color of the skin tone. They worked together with a makeup company, and we got every color, of the skin tone there. And it was a beautiful thing. And then I would say, because we're a caring company, we're on Zoom, we're not seeing people. What we learned this year was empathy and care had to go to a whole new level, a whole new level. And so we had to personally reach out to people. We had to send care packages. We had to do things that were just different to make sure people knew we cared about them. And I will tell you personally, when I would reach out to folks and just say, I'm just calling to see how you're doing, 70 to 80% of them would just break into tears. People were lonely and people were, having a hard time.
Yeah.
So our leaders learned that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, trying to be agile, because every time I looked around the corner, Phil, we had something lurking around the corner. So, we had to learn to be pretty agile as a 100-year-old company. So those were,
I think this is great. And yes, what a year. Wow. And a couple of people have sent messages in the chat. By the way, if you put a chat message in, include everyone so that all the attendees can see it as well as the panelists. One person wrote, what a year you've had. Thank goodness you're at the helm. You're amazing. That's very lovely.
thank you.
Maybe one of the more challenging questions I would ask Sabrina is, and yes, I know the history of the company. I think that the concern that many of us have about D&I initiatives is whether is it going to be a long-term commitment, right? Is this going to go away after the protests die down, right? Or are companies going to actually make some serious changes? And yes, you've done some of that, but can you talk about like what's easy or hard, and in really making this a commitment to change, especially
Yeah.
for American, employees and leadership there?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the part that's been the easiest for us is that it was part of our 100-year history. And so it's been part of our culture. But as
Yeah.
I've been talking to other folks, friends of mine at other corporations, the hardest part for them is to drive the culture and get it to stick. D&I, sometimes it just sits over here and it's something this group does and takes
Right.
care of. I think the change agent for us was our CEO. For our CEO to own it at the enterprise level and drive it. So then what we've done, I report to the CEO, Mike, and what we've done together with Jessica's help is that we have put together the quarterly business reviews for each of our businesses. And on the quarterly business review, they have to talk about their progress in the D&I space and the
Yeah.
employee experience. It's part of the quarterly business review. So it's starting to get embedded in the conversations. It also then, each of the presidents, so Wanya, Rich, and Smith, have all taken D&I objectives and embedded it into their 2021 objectives. So we're doing this together, and we're all seven of us, the four enabling, so our general counsel, our CFO, our CTO, and myself, we've all embedded it into ours as well. So all seven of us are aligned. And I think that's really the way that you can start to see this long-term commitment and change.
Yeah. So I have a few more questions, but I mostly want to hear from the audience. So if you have a question or a comment, doesn't have to be a question, please put it in the chat. We'd love to see it, and include, quote, everyone. When you write a note, you can do panelists and attendees. So do that so that everyone can see what you're writing, as well as us panelists, if you will. Sabrina, while we're waiting to see what questions or comments people want to share, I wonder if you could go a little personal for a moment, and maybe a little vulnerable with us, and talk about, what it means for, what your own personal history has done to inform your passion on this topic. And
Yeah, I mean, so, as Phil shared with everybody, my history of being Japanese and American, but really, I think the one level deeper, where my mother was actually born in Nagasaki. My father's dad also fought in World War II at Pearl Harbor. So I couldn't have two more diametrically different families that in the get-go did not like one another and didn't want the other one to, be married. So for me to be born in it's so weird. I was born on Veterans Day, so 11/11. So I always think there's something, kismet about all of that. But I think that, growing up, when I would go to Japan and visit my mother's family when I was very, very young, and even as I got older, so my story continues. The piece that Phil didn't share with you is that we found my mom when I was 11.
Yeah.
We had to find her. So I did not know her from 3 to 11. And my grandfather hired a private detective and actually went out and found her. So when they did, I reunited with my family in Japan when I was 13. And when I went back to Japan multiple times, I was not accepted in some of the Japanese homes because I was American, and I could feel it. There was some of the same then in America for sure. You know, I got called every name in the book and all of those things as a child because I looked very, very Asian as a child, and it was unusual in the middle of Missouri. So I felt it and didn't understand it when I was very young. And so I get it. I get what being diverse is. And I've always been small framed. I'm only 5'1½". And so to be in a CAO role, sometimes I would walk into a room and people would ask me to get the coffee. They would talk down to me. I mean, I've had all kinds of experiences, which is fine. But I know what that's like. And so I have a real passion to make sure people are heard, to make sure that diverse opinions are valued. And that's really, I think, what drove me. It drove me at H&R Block. And then when I came into Hallmark, it was such a good fit that I led it then for Hallmark for the last, 10 years or so.
I mean, I have to say, I'm really happy that Hallmark hired you, Sabrina. You're an important addition to the company. And, my heart just breaks. I didn't share that part about your mother, but just thinking about like what it means as a child to be taught everywhere you go, you don't belong. That is a very, very hard thing to hear. And I'm really sorry that you went through that. And that also that you're even living with your father really wasn't there for you. And you had to leave at age 14. I mean, that's pretty serious, right? And I appreciate that you've taken that pain and turned it into something positive for yourself, but also for others, what you're doing here. And I'm just really moved by that and grateful. So what questions and challenges, it can be, challenging questions or things that you don't like or are worried about, that Sabrina shared with us.
It looks like there was a really good kind of Hallmark movies were a hallmark of my childhood.
Yes.
So good to see that we're responding. You worked for Intuit TurboTax for 6 months. Okay, well, that was our competitor. I led the tax cut business against TurboTax for a while. So that's interesting. Let's see, as well as social initiatives going on in the US. Okay, let's
She's
see.
at Thermo Fisher now, which is a big
Got it.
biotech company. Yeah.
Also has been different. I do think for lasting change to happen, it needs to be on the senior level, a level of senior leadership.
Yeah.
I think this is easier said than implemented. That's right. I'm curious to see what changes the company will make on a leadership level, which ultimately funnels down to all the other departments. And yes, H&R Block was a big competitor. That's right. We're not any longer competitors, but yes, we were big competitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, because it's always been part of Don and Dave Hall, Don Hall Sr. and JC Hall. It's always been at the top down. So we love that our new CEO, who's not a Hall, the Halls have ascended to chair and vice chair of our company. So they're still involved and he still answers to them because they're on our board. But our CEO believes this. I mean, he's been with our company 25 years and he bleeds the beliefs and values. So the fact that he's taken ownership and he's beloved, he's just beloved. He used to be the CEO of Crayola. So the Crayola team knows him. He was an interim at Crown Media for a while. So the Crown Media folks love him. So he's the right person for us to lead DE&I. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's got to start at the most senior levels.
Sabrina, we've got a great question here from Leonora.
Hi, Leonora.
She's asking, can you share how you handled the internal trauma within Hallmark in the wake of the murder of George Floyd and the resurgence of Black Lives Matter? how was that going on internally in the company?
Yeah.
And
And Jessica, feel free to pop off of mute if you want to add anything here, because I know you were instrumental in helping us. But Leonora, just for everybody's sake, I believe this is the same Leonora that was on my panel, right?
Yeah.
So when you say people give you gifts back, I just want to say hi to her because she was helping me through some organizational transformation stuff. And so I'm grateful for that. But I think, Leonora, the answer to your question was, it was tough between Zola and Black Lives Matter, right? We had to get really raw and real. And so what we did is in January, we were still all together. And so when we were together, Mike and I flew out to Crown Media multiple times, flew to LA and flew to New York and held sessions, small group sessions, and allowed people to emote and talk about their feelings and with no retaliation. We also did the same in Kansas City, and we held groups, small groups, large groups, and we participate. Like I personally participated, Mike participated, Jessica helped us facilitate, and we had to heal together, and we had to answer back, and we had to be accountable for the things people were asking us for, which is then how the 5-point plan came about. So like all of that was from listening and talking and hearing from our people, but we spent an inordinate amount of time with our employees. I mean,
Yeah.
really a lot of time on the ground. Jessica, anything you would add to that?
The only thing I would add, and I appreciate using the word trauma, because that was probably one of the most eye-opening aspects that many of us, myself included, took away from the experience that our workplace had in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. Sabrina mentioned these listening sessions that we hosted, and I think one of the more powerful aspects of the listening sessions is that we invited our senior most executives to the conversations to listen. And every corporate officer at the company attended. And I think Sabrina would confirm this. Nearly everyone ended the session in tears, thinking about their personal accountability as human beings to help make the world a better place and try to work within their areas of power and privilege to reform the social justice matters that are facing us, but then also in their obligation as leaders of the company. And a lot of what Sabrina's mentioned about our ongoing accountability lives within, I think, what those leaders all experienced last summer, and hearing live from our employees just how traumatic these matters are to them.
Yeah.
It was. We held 12 in which all the executives came and attended the 12. And Leonora, at the end of it, that's what got those 7 committed to these objectives. I mean, it really was. It's how we moved to action. Like we moved very quickly to action.
And I just want to point out, like, that is absolutely, like, they can't read a report, they can't, like, whatever, they have to be there with real human beings and hear the hard things that those folks are saying. All right, this is great. So there's some more questions coming in. There's some Q&A. So I'll just give you, one is, are you including,
Phil, if you can save just 3 minutes at the end, I'd love to end with showing you guys the advancements in the that you have to leave you guys with a Hallmark moment. So we do have a couple of commercials queued up for you guys if you grab your Kleenex, but they're wonderful about diversity and inclusion. We have I think two commercials, Jessica, is that right? So maybe 3 minutes of commercials that we want to show you. Okay.
Okay. All right, so 3 issues. One is age included in Hallmark's DE&I initiative. 2, do you think a company with a CEO who privately does not believe in DE&I but publicly states it, can be successful in this arena? I think the answer to that is no, but I don't know. Maybe they can fake it. It's really easy to see when they're faking it on stuff like this, though. I don't think you can do that. And then another was how was the decision made to be so transparent about your DEI journey, and what was the motivating factor? Yeah, so do you want to respond to those? And
yeah, so let me take 2 and 3, and then I think you'll have to remind me what number 1 was again.
Age.
Age. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. So our DE&I journey is on multiple facets. So we look at age, gender, race. Um, we look at sexual orientation, disability, military. Trying to think what else. I mean, we have a list of a variety of ways in which we cut the data, look at the data, and make sure that we're supporting DE&I across the board. So I don't know if that answers that person's question, but yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Number two, can a CEO fake it till he makes it or she makes it? And can they be successful at it? I don't know. We have people on our team that are on different levels of their journey. And so while some may feel clumsy because they just don't quite understand it, and others are very well articulated in this space and get it, they're all passionate about it in one way or another, and it's leading the company. So I would say the answer to that is probably yes, but they can't be fake to who they are. They have to admit, hey, I'm not quite there yet. Like one of our leaders is still on his learning journey. He just is like, this is the first I've really opened my eyes to this. I didn't really understand. I'm going to read some more books so that I can try to understand. What do you recommend? His vulnerability for not knowing and not being on that journey has played really well for him, but he's vulnerable about it. I think if a CEO fakes it and says, I'm a D&I champion, and then they really aren't, I think people can sniff that out.
Totally.
So I think that's, I don't know what your CEO or who the CEO is, that would be the watch out.
Yeah. So I know you want to show the commercial. So maybe 2 more minutes. Somebody posted another question saying, I think they're a D&I leader actually, and they are saying that advocacy is the one that might be the most difficult to champion at some companies. And in their role, as a D&I person, he's talked to people that are genuinely hostile to the idea that companies in a capitalist democratic society should be doing this type of advocacy or trying to create a better society. How, you're in Missouri, you're right, and right in the middle of the whole Josh Hawley controversy, you took a real stand. How would you recommend thinking about and responding to those attitudes that he or she is running into?
I think that the thing for us is we just stay true to our mission and our beliefs and values. And I don't know what your company's beliefs and values are. I just don't know. But for us, it was squarely in our beliefs and values. And so because, for us, love is love, and that is the basic principle that we operate off of, it's easy for us then to make those decisions when the time comes. But, Don and Dave, they feel very strongly about this, and we also know it's our culture. And so people who work for Hallmark, we tell that to, if this is not a place you're comfortable working because this is our beliefs and values, then this is not where you should work. So I think that and now it's not that we don't value, we have Dayspring, we have a Christian company. So we have a religion, we value love is love for everything. We love all pieces of this. Blue Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, whatever. It's not our place to judge any of those things. It's our place to provide connecting product in that world. So we've got, if you want to quote scripture, we've got cards that have scripture on it, and so we try not to get in the middle of your political viewpoints. But when we made the decision on the Howley Marshall thing, we did receive, like I told you, we received death threats and people angry and all that. But the employees who were still strongly conservative are some people in our plants in Crayola and some people in our plants and employees. They actually said, we always know where Hallmark stands. It's not the way I believe, but I know what company I'm working for, and I'm okay with that. So I think the clarity and the transparency, we let Don, Dave, Mike, we make sure we tell the employees why we made the decision. Jessica wrote with Mike, we explained to all of our employees, this is why we pulled the funding. This is what we believe, and I would say, Jessica, help me out here, but for the most part, no matter which side, conservative or not, we got positive feedback from the employees because they knew where we stood, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. The transparency that we offered was was really helpful. And to your point, while the perception from the public was mixed, the perception within our employee population was 100% positive. We got nothing but good feedback, whether you agreed with the decision or not, just because we provided the context.
That's great. All right.
So
Well, thank you. This has been wonderful. You want to show us a commercial?
yeah, we're just going to end with, I'm just going to end with the 2 DE&I commercials. I think we've got 2 queued for you guys to watch. And so I just wanted you guys to see what we did with this. Okay.
Yeah, I think you just hit the play button in the lower left. There we go.
Dear Mom, you taught me so much. That practice makes perfect. And perfect is overrated. That changes and challenges make us who we are. I am who I am because of you. Happy Mother's Day. I hope you love it.
Okay. And then we've got the second one. There we go.
Hey, Mom. What are you up to?
Just putting up the tree.
We haven't decorated the house yet.
With all that's happening and the move and the baby, you're busy.
I just wanted to make our first Christmas feel extra special. Like you and Dad always do.
Merry Christmas, honey.
Okay. I just wanted to end on those notes. I've seen the commercial like 10 times and I still cry every time. So anyway, thank you guys for all the questions and the great conversation. And I appreciate the time. Phil, thank you guys so much.
Let's all give her a round of applause and put thank yous in the chat if you don't mind. Yay.
Thanks.
What a lovely conversation. Mark Carpenter raised his hand. I don't know. Mark, did you want to say something? Let's see. And Mark McCormick, if you want to talk offline, I'm happy to talk more with you on that topic you raised in the Q&A. Thank you, everybody. And Sabrina, just again, I'm just so grateful to get to know you and you know, bring the power of this community to support you in the good work that you're doing. I appreciate you for who you are and where you've come from and who you are and how you bring yourself, how you show up. Oh, Mark was trying to clap. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I love this organization. So thanks so much, Phil, for everything you guys give back to me as well and to Hallmark. We're grateful. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.